it was a great experience in terms of democracy and work and parties coming together and really providing a president, a former president, with a just due. I thought that the if anybody saw it, to have Vice President Mondale's son and President Ford's son read eulogies that they actually wrote while prior to the president's death, obviously, but that was powerful. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm here this afternoon to tell Rhode Islanders we have had a connection to the who have had a connection to the Rhode Island Bridges system to watch their mail. Today, Asperian is mailing letters to individuals whose data was stored in the Rhode Island Bridge system managed by Deloitte and whose personal information may have been compromised. I learned yesterday that this letter was going to be out today as opposed to early next week, and that's why we're here today to continue to provide information directly to the people in the state whose information has been compromised. The letters will have the state seal in the top left corner. And if you're like me, I don't read my mail very often, and so let's pay special attention to the mailings that'll be coming over the next week or so. Translated versions for clients who speak Spanish and Portuguese have also been sent. We expect that it may take several days for this information to reach recipients. That letter will provide the recipient with a code and directions to access 5 years of free credit monitoring. If there's a minor whose information may have been compromised, that minor will have a separate code to access free credit monitoring. For this mailing, the deadline to sign up for the free credit monitoring is April 30th of this year. As a reminder, Deloitte is still reviewing the contents of all the breach files. It is likely that more individuals will be identified in the future. If that proves to be the case, additional letters will be mailed once those names are identified. If you think you are impacted and do not receive a letter in the next few days, we ask you to be patient and give the mail a couple additional days to arrive before immediately calling this hotline. We do not have the ability to verify if you have been impacted over the phone or through the field offices. Information about the letters will be available on our dedicated website, cyberalert.ri.gov. And access to the letter that'll be mailed will be posted there as well, and we're making provisions to have that in translation in multiple languages. If you have other questions, you can call Rhode Island Bridges call center at 833-918-6603. Hours of operation are available at cyberalert.ri.gov. And we know that this remains a concerning situation for the people who have been impacted, and we appreciate your patience while the letters are delivered. I can just say that every effort is being made on customer service to provide this information that is important to you on an as-needed basis. And make sure I'll repeat that phone number again, 833-918-6603. And we're pleased at this point, very pleased, and Kim Brittle's here along with our director of the health resource, Lindsay's here as well, to kind of give a overview if they're asked in terms of the benefits that are continuing to be provided in a timely way. Again, the most important message for Rhode Islanders to hear is please watch your mailbox for this letter. And I'll just say for information to the media that's here today, we will talk about Rhode Island Bridges take all your questions on that, and then I'll have a statement on the homelessness, and then we'll take your questions if you have questions after I make the statement on that. So I'll hand it over to Brian, Chief Digital Officer. And Brian, thank you, and thank you for the whole crew for the work that you're doing at this point in time.
Thank you, Governor. Brian Tardif, Chief Digital Officer. Good afternoon, everyone. From a technology and cybersecurity perspective, we continue to focus our effort in a few distinct areas. At this point in time, we have received the summary report of the security incident from Deloitte. We have also received the draft summary report from our third-party vendor, validating that the security threat has been remediated. The findings in these reports provide us a high level of confidence that we know how the breach was executed and that we have taken the appropriate measures to ensure the system can be restored safely. These reports contain sensitive security information about the system and cannot be publicly shared, but we are working with our third-party vendor and others to provide as many details as we can from the reports. The second line of effort is to evaluate the data that was compromised. Deloitte is in the process of reviewing data released on the dark web. This time-consuming process includes ensuring the files are not corrupt, are free of malicious software, and then validation of the data. The third line of phase restoration plan and have completed phase 1, state caseworker access. We are now well into phase 2, which is the restoration of the public-facing features. This work entails security checks, performance checks, and reintegration with partners that share data with the RIBridges environment. Part of the reintegration work is reassuring our partners that the system is safe, which has been attested to by a third-party vendor. We continue to target a mid-January restoration of a secure and stable RIBridges. Director Burrow.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you, Governor, for everything and everyone gathered here today for this update. Kim Brito, Department of Human Services. With access for staff to the worker portal, DHS has been able to work through new paper applications received since the start of the RIBridges breach. In fact, Rhode Islanders should know that we have begun mailing notices based on these applications, and customers should expect to receive them soon. If you believe there is an issue with any of the benefit decision notices that you begin to receive, please know that you can appeal. Also, remember that the customer portal, which is our healthyroadri.gov, and our Healthy Road mobile app remain unavailable due to the data breach, but DHS is still available. You can apply for all benefits by phone by calling 1-855-697-4347, in person at any of our DHS field offices across the state, or by mail. And all of our locations are listed on the dhs.ri.gov website. Again, all of our offices are open for business. We are extending hours in those locations and in our call center as well. Next week, our call center will be open from 4 to 7, Monday through Friday. Thank you.
I think we're ready for questions.
I had a question. Last week, I asked DHS if they were getting help from other agencies in the state, and she said no. Why? Why she like to the community? We got no help from other agencies.
Well, so I don't know what the comment was, but I can tell you that, and in fact, we've got a couple of people in the back of the room there that are thoroughly involved in the customer service, and I paid a visit to DHS office too. Yes.
Happy to.
Yes.
Why she lied to me last week?
Yeah, I don't believe that I.
Ask a question.
Sure.
How many organization or agency are helping DHS? And you say none, 0.
So I'm sorry if I misunderstood the question that was asked to me last week. So I'd be happy to respond if you give me a moment. So we have a tremendous amount of providers, including all of our sister state agencies that are helping us to ensure that benefits are getting across the line. But what we do not have is any contractors or any support in our offices doing any eligibility work. When that question came to me last week, that is how I responded. So we do not have any contractors assisting us in getting that work done, but we have a tremendous amount of partners in the community that work with us, that are sister state agencies, that we all have a consistent message that we're working with Rhode Islanders. But in terms of processing applications and working in the access we have to our worker portal now, it is 100% the state staff that are doing that. So I apologize if I made a mistake in answering that or not being clear last week.
Yeah, but the governor replied that question very well. There are people in this room, they got upset last week when I asked you the question. Because they understand the question. I don't know how you don't understand the question. But thank you for the reply.
Of course.
Yeah, I think Kim clarified that she answered the question that she thought she heard, but I can just tell you that the work that's happening over in that office is second to none, and the reason that the work is getting done because of the work is, but the support of the customer service is coming from multiple departments, whether it's going into our health source, Rhode Island, or it's coming into our Medicaid or Department of Health, or the DOA. I mean, the list is long, so we're meeting regularly on it.
Governor, how many letters are going out and how many people have been impacted?
Yeah, so the exact number, I'll let Jonathan answer that question, but it's right in the range that we predicted.
So 657,000 people are what the impacted number of individuals are, but 709,000 letters are going out, and there's a difference there, obviously, and that has a lot to do with people that have guardian relationships or parents. They all need to be also notified, so some of them have multiple letters.
At this point, what can you tell us about the reports we've received from Deloitte, and why isn't the state insisting that a representative from Deloitte come and answer the public's questions?
So we are ensuring that Deloitte is responding appropriately and restoring the system. That's the focus of their efforts. We have just recently received these reports, and we are now at the point where we are sharing those reports with legal entities across the state to ensure that we're able to share the appropriate information at the right time without compromising the state systems.
It appears that some of the data that's been released on the dark web includes information like child support system payments. So that's something that hadn't been mentioned at these press conferences until now. Are there other areas like that that you can share that may have been impacted?
I can't share that at this time. Like I stated, Deloitte is actively downloading the data and assessing. It's a lengthy and extensive process that we want to make sure that we get right.
Switch days. What is the approximate cost of free credit monitoring and identity theft insurance for 5 years and lifetime identity restoration for 657,000 people?
A lot.
So as part of the contractual relationship with Deloitte, they're required to handle those things, and whatever it costs is what they will pay. I don't have an answer for you on the exact figure, but we will work on getting that. I will say that, we've been working with Deloitte, and we've had expenses on the state side besides their own expenses, and they're providing support to make sure that we can pay for those.
And if we agreed to pay all of it, they're not asking you to share the cost at all?
Of the credit monitoring, is that what you're asking? Yes.
Okay, and then real quick, people move a lot, and so if someone had benefits a few years ago, they're no longer a benefit recipient. How do you know the right address?
No, that's a great question, and as you have time go on, you're absolutely right. People move, things change. Experience worked with commercial databases to try to make sure that we have the most up-to-date addresses. However, we are going to try to follow up where people have provided things like email addresses in the system previously. We'll follow up with emails after the fact, and Experian will also get returned letters as things happen, and those returned letters are going to get put into another file that we're going to have to try to work through even more diligently to make sure that they get those notices eventually.
If someone doesn't get a letter, can they call the hotline and provide their address?
Yeah, well, what we're asking is people wait for the letters to be received first, you know, given the volume and how much we have out there. But at some point, we might make that ask.
Would anyone be able to outline a specific timeline for how long that free credit monitoring will be available to residents?
Yeah, it's 5 years of monitoring, but then it's also lifetime for identity theft protection.
Have you guys received any reports thus far of any residents that have actually lost money as a result of this breach?
We have not, no.
We received a few complaints from people who have paid for their health insurance through HealthSource RI in December, only to find out that they don't have health insurance coverage now in January. Is the data breach at all affecting people's health insurance coverage, and what should people do if they paid for their insurance and now don't have it?
Great question. The short answer is no. The data breach specifically is not going to impact coverage that's been paid for. As you know, in past press conferences, I have spoken about the different ways that people can make a payment. That would include an auto payment that's set up in the customer's account. They can call the HealthSource RI contact center and make a payment that way. And they can also go to CVS. But I would also stress that our call center is available if there are specific questions. I don't want to comment on anyone's particular account, but we are picking up the phone in under a minute. So if anybody does have a specific concern, they should reach out and we can help troubleshoot that.
And switching gears a little bit, is there any indication that there are more files that could still be released on the dark web as a result of this breach?
That's part of the assessment that's ongoing by Deloitte. The site is intermittently inaccessible, so there's challenges there. They've downloaded a majority of the files, but that's part of the assessment to validate what we understand has been taken versus what has been posted.
Governor, has the state of Rhode Island received any demand letters to serve with any litigation, any preservation orders or evidence? And as a follow-up, for all of that, what engagement does the Attorney General have in this process, particularly with regards to potential litigation against the state?
So I'll answer that very quickly, and if Jonathan wants to weigh in, because he's the one who's in conversations. So the legal matters will be centralized with the Attorney General.
I'll add that we have been asked to preserve documents relative to the investigation. And so you asked that specific question. We have been, that notification.
At any level, there has been any correspondence with any firms representing current or potential litigants?
So that would be directed to the Attorney General's office.
You wouldn't be aware of that then?
No, I know where it exists, but that correspondence wouldn't be to us. It would be to the Attorney General's office.
Would we know about the situation?
Other than that exists, no.
Okay, so there has been, just for final thing, for the record, there has been correspondence with potential litigants as opposed to, you know. So
I don't know about any correspondence.
Okay.
I know that it exists.
Do we have any more follow-up here? Gabrielle? Just wanted to clarify, when did the state get the initial reports from Deloitte summarizing what they believe has happened?
So I can't recall the exact date at this point, but that report initially from Deloitte was about a week ago. And we're working to validate that report with our third-party vendor. We want to make sure that what has been reported by Deloitte is factual.
And so you won't release further information about the report until the third-party vendor validates it?
We do intend to release information from the reports that do not compromise any potential legal action or the system's security.
All right, thank you. So, on to the next piece of this, if you guys want to.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, we're shifting gears. and I want to just thank, again, all the leadership that is working on this very pressing matter, which is of utmost importance to our administration. So I want to just address the subject of homelessness, which is certainly top of mind for many, especially in the winter months. I want to begin the discussion around issuing an emergency, about issuing an emergency declaration. A common misconception is that an emergency declaration would make more federal funding available for the situation, and it would not. I think we need to clarify many things that are reported, but individuals are providing information to the media that is inaccurate, and I think we need to kind of make sure that those issues are addressed. We have, however, directed an unprecedented amount of funding in recent years into addressing this complex problem, and I would also want to say that it's certainly the state has increased its investment in this issue on homelessness strategically over the last few years, and continues to do it. But we're not able to handle this whole issue on our own. So community leaders need to be really involved, which they are. You see in East Providence opening up a warming center. By the way, our warming centers are triggered by the temperature and not necessarily any pressure that might be coming from advocates. We have scheduled based on when we open up warming centers, and we're going to adhere to that. But because of the situation, and I've directed that those warming centers stay open until such time as I deem that they are no longer needed. But we will be monitoring those as well, whether they're in East Providence with Mayor De Silva, or Woonsocket with Mayor Beauchamp, and Providence with Mayor Smiley, just to name a few of the communities that are doing their part and adding to what we're doing in the state. The other area is the nonprofits, the churches, the providers are all important to us, and we got to make sure that this effort, which has been one that's been around for decades, and we are now addressing, I think, in a very proactive way. We need to have everyone understand that they play a role in this, and we appreciate the contributions that we're getting from outside the state as well. I want to make clear that during, with our acting secretary, Deborah Goddard, that during the first week on the job, she met with the Coalition to End Homelessness, who runs the coordinated entry system for shelter beds, to hear about their needs and feedback. And when I heard that the executive director was looking to speak to me, which I didn't have any record of that, but I made sure that I spoke with her within 24 hours and had a conversation with Kim, along with the Secretary of Housing, as well as members of our office. So we can keep on looking for that, and I look forward to meeting with her when she becomes available, which is sometime in midweek next week, to ask her specifically about the same questions that I've asked over and over the last few years. So give me the list, share the list of the individuals that are on a waiting list, so that we can so that we can contact them and see where they stand at this moment in time. Also, certainly high priority, if there's any knowledge of anyone in the public outside of even our state or even the CES department or the providers that know of young people that are potentially unhoused, that information needs to be handed directly to our housing office, or to DCYF or our office, and and to the media. And if the media gets information about young kids that are unhoused, we would hope that that information would be delivered very quickly to our office. So I want to just say that the work that is doing is never enough, but the work that is going on right now is one that I believe that we're trying to make sure that anyone that's looking for housing, for a shelter, that is available. So we're looking at all facets of the problem, including evaluating the current setup for the coordinated entry system that helps place individuals in shelters, and the data collection that helps identify where beds are available. And I had a conversation with the speaker yesterday about this very issue, said that I was going to receive a letter, and I said, well, geez, we'll get the letter, and then we'll respond to the letter, and then we find out the letter actually was provided to the media before we even had a chance to look at it. And that's their call, the individuals in the House and Senate, but at the same moment in time, there's incorrect information in that letter. So one of the things was that it was mentioned that providers were laying off people because they didn't have the funds. The funds weren't up to date. Well, two issues on that. One is that we only received information from one provider that said that they needed funding because they were falling behind. We took care of that immediately. And then once I found out that there's some people who don't have contracts or have not been up to date on the funding, I made sure that those fundings would be made in advance for up to date, bring them all up to date, so that we're not in the winter months. And it mentioned in the letter that we were still behind on payments. Well, we've taken care of that. So people who potentially have want to share information, I would say, call our office, call the people who are actually running the operation. We'll give you the information up to date, and then if there's still gaps in what you want to see, then of course the media is an important plays an important role in this. I would say the Secretary's goal is to get get to the root causes of homelessness here in Rhode Island, so we can put strategies in place to not only shelter folks, but to reduce the need for temporary shelter by transitioning people into permanent housing. But right now, the most important thing that we can do is to have shelter during this time, and particularly during the cold time, so that we keep people safe. I see that as my main responsibility, is to make sure that we're keeping people safe. And we want to do everything we can do that, but to jump ahead to permanent shelter without addressing the issues that have to do with making sure that we have enough shelter, permanent housing, is a mistake. And we can continue to add to the beds. So that you have two different levels of not only of the people that are in the sea that are being managed by the sea to almost 1,350 beds since I've been there, but that doesn't take into consideration the other agencies that are working, whether it's the Providence Rescue Mission, right? This is outside the CES issues, and there's multiple churches that are stepping up as well, doing the work. So when we look at the total number of shelter beds that are available, they've increased significantly. We are doing the analysis now to determine whether in fact there's enough in place, and if there's not, we have certain things in motion, that including the pallet shelter issue, which frustrates me as much. I've been publicly about that, and we've made additional phone calls today to the people who are managing that project, as well as the people who are doing the construction on that project, or whether it's to Rhode Island Energy. We're talking about transformers that are not there at the moment. We'll have more up-to-date information about that, that inquiry, and we'll share that when we get it. But I do want to give, there are providers, and many providers, and I'm not slating anybody by announcing, but Crossroads, Rhode Island, the Warm Center down in Westerly, the Diocese of Providence, the Amos House, as I mentioned, the Providence Rescue Mission, Open Doors. The list is long and long and long. So I want to make sure that the people who are following this story understand that there is very good people that are out there providing shelter, not only during the winter months, but year-round. So there are many good partners across our state doing this work, and I want to thank them. And the state funds nearly 1,300 shelter beds, as I've said. and that is increasing as we open up these warming stations. And I repeat again, I've made it known that we're not shutting that down, shutting any of those temporary warming stations up that's happened to open up in East Providence, and I was told there was a couple people there last night, so we'll let people know where these opportunities are, and we're not shutting them down until I say that they should be, that we should reduce that temporary shelter that's being put in place in warming centers. Places like East Providence, as I said, Pawtucket, and I mentioned the mayors. Again, it's worth mentioning again, Mayor Smiley stepping up doing this, as well as Mayor Grebian, Mayor Beauchamp, and then, of course, Mayor DeSilva in East Providence, and there's many, many more. And we're meeting with the municipal leaders on a regular basis so that we can also make sure that we believe, what the count is in terms of people staying outside is one that we can kind of compare against some of the data that we're receiving. And that's happening in motion right now, and I know other people in the media are actually asking the same questions of people, of our police departments in different communities to make sure that we're doing everything we can to identify those who should be sheltered and that are willing to be sheltered are sheltered. So we have to do this together. Community-based and faith-based organizations, state agency, municipalities, the shelter providers, and the homeless advocates. We're meeting on a regular basis to make sure that we're doing everything we can because every life matters, whether it's someone that's homeless, somebody that's got an addiction, somebody that's the public safety that defends us every day, somebody in the fire that defends us every day. Every life in the state does matter, and we should be doing everything we possibly can to address that issue. So back to the issue of the emergency declaration. Right. I understand that it could allow the state to waive some fire safety laws currently in Rhode Island statute. Unfortunately, Rhode Islanders know all too well that worst case scenario for neglecting fire regulations. And so at this point in time, we're going to continue to add shelter as opposed to create potentially, which I think would be argued by our fire department leadership in the state, as creating another safety problem that as we're trying to solve an important safety issue. So I would also say that finally that if you have questions, we're more than willing to answer them. And if you have issues that where there's help and assistance that can be provided over and above what I just described, we're more than willing to include people to address this issue. So take questions.
Please wait for the microphone because not everybody can hear you, Steph. Go ahead.
Governor, are you reevaluating the state's contract with the coalition to run the CES system?
Yes.
What would you mean?
Well, I think that what that could mean that it's managed by CES, but it's managed differently, right? Because you're seeing some gaps here. One of the ones that came up with a call with the executive director the other day internally with our Secretary of Housing was that there was very limited hours, in my opinion, on weekends. That should be corrected, right? I mean, it's just like we just talked about Rhode Island Bridges. I mean, we put 24 hours, we basically put 7-day-a-week phone calling on the Rhode Island Bridges issue. I think that, it can be cold on a Saturday and it can be cold on a Wednesday. So we should be, so there could be some adjustments there. And we're going to continue to meet. I have, I believe, an appointment set up with the executive director next week, and I'm going to be asking her, provide us the numbers, provide us the waiting list, provide us information about children issues, and also talk about how we can provide, better customer service. And so I think that's the main issue there.
It sounds like you're not satisfied with the way they're reporting data or sharing data with you?
Well, I think that we need to continue to stand up the information, right? So we're going to need to make sure that so if it is 684 people or whatever the number is that were outside in the cold last night, I think we have to verify that against putting resources in to address that. So yes, and this is not new news. I've been public about this for quite some time, that the information that comes from the advocates is different from what we're hearing on the ground. Not to say that we couldn't use more shelter, but also, I'll repeat, the answer here is more shelter beds. And that's what we continue to do. And I mentioned multiple times that I want to have more shelter beds than the need. And if we're not there yet, guess what? We're gonna add more shelter beds.
Do you have an estimate of what the state is hearing is the number of people who are outside overnight at this time?
Well, we're getting information that, we're even getting information from the people who are giving the information and saying it might not be totally 100% reliable, but we're getting information on how many empty, available beds there are in the system on a nightly basis, and we're not hearing zero. We're hearing that there are dozens, and back to the question that was asked about the management, the way it's going. Right now, if somebody calls into CES, they reserve the bed for 48 hours. Maybe we should be taking a look at that and maybe reserving it for 12 hours, right? And so that anybody that might need a shelter bed that is responding in a way that they're showing up, then that might be also a piece there. But yes, in terms of the numbers, right now, and again, I don't want to lay out numbers that could be pushed back on. We're getting that numbers every night. Where the beds are depends on families issues, right, or men or women. We understand that there's a particular type of shelter that needs to be provided in different circumstances.
Does the state have a different number for how many people are still living outside without access to a bed? I know you said that 600 something number you don't believe to be accurate. What is it?
Well, right now, I think that one of the best ways to take a look at that is to go to the municipalities, go to their police departments. They know that area as well as anybody does, and I was a former mayor, and at that point in time, if you really circle the clock back, homelessness was not a state issue. It was a local issue, and it was one that was done through nonprofits, churches, municipal leadership. So as a mayor or a municipal leader or a police chief, they know the numbers, and we'll get back to you what they're saying, but I've done this before, and I've also asked, where are these encampments? I've gone out on a cold day with police, with housing advocates, to try to actually identify physically where encampments is. I haven't done that. I didn't do that last year. I'll do that again this year. Because of the fact that there's a great deal of coverage on this right now. So we're going to have to go and fact check at this point in time. Last year we didn't get a whole lot of this. This year we're getting a great deal more, and so now we're going to have to do our own fact checking to make sure that the investments that we're making are appropriate.
Governor McKee, in the past handful of years, the state has largely effortlessly built large-scale housing for everyone from COVID patients, and then in the case of the Army Navy game, large-scale housing on a temporary basis for military people. Despite a long tradition of winter in New England, and at this point, 3 or 4 years of conversation about the same subject with former Secretary Pryor, now the current Interim Secretary, you have communities who are fumbling literally at the last minute. Communities like East Providence and Sacramento just starting to implement warming centers in the last 24 hours, despite 2 weeks' notice that this particular polar vortex was going to be an issue. Why? And at what point in time do we recognize that that housing in an emergency basis like this is a critical priority? I can tell you from personal experience that I visit 5 to 6 homes encampments a week.
Well, tell me where they are. Tell me where they are, and I will go visit them. And if they're out tonight, let's do it tonight. I'll take up the challenge. Tell me where they are. You and I can go out and see them tonight. Tell me where they are, while they're living outside in this weather. I'll be happy to do it. I would disagree with what you're saying. 2 years ago, we opened up the Cranston Street Armory because the hospital in Pawtucket had a maintenance issue. And then we opened up the Cranston Street Armory. I engaged, this is why I did it without a emergency declaration. I engaged the National Guard to actually be there on a regular basis over a few months to address that issue. And so yeah, we are responding to point-in-time situations if in fact we haven't put enough shelter beds in place. Right now, we'll do, because of this issue that is coming front and center here, We are, out doing an inspection on our own to determine whether or not in fact we are. But we're not going to engage the National Guard unless we actually need it. And I've already done it once, and I would do it again if in fact it's determined that we need to do something. You got to get the mic, bro. Get the mic.
What is the formal status currently of the Charles Gate acquisition? Is it being used for homeless, and is it in fact up for sale?
Well, first of all, I think that part of the solution for us to own and control real estate where there's shelter beds, I believe what I was told is that that's families that are using that, unhoused families, and we're pleased where we are right now because that area, that building has been designated for family use.
You say fact check. You giving money out like candy to all these organizations, but they're not reporting back to you and to the media how they're spending their money. And second, let me correct you, was hundreds of beds available last night. I took part with me to a tour to different organizations and agencies that have beds available. People make this political. You mentioned Providence Rescue Mission. Over 40 beds available last night. And the coalition to end homelessness. No panic with the city of East Providence. Only 2 people showed up last night to East Providence. If they had the list and the number, why didn't took more people to East Providence? That means it's still wasting the money. Crossroad, that agency had to be closed and start from scratch. But they're not giving you information.
Yeah, so I think the information is really important. We're going to go out again and verify the data to our best of ability and match up that data against what we're receiving so that, just like you said, resources are limited, but yet, in my mind, if there's a need, we are going to address it. But as you just said, you're getting the same information that we're getting at the moment, and that could change at any minute. So. And we need to make sure that we can have faith in the information and that it's reliable. And as I was saying before, we're responding to media reports that are coming from individuals that don't have the information correct. And so that what that does is that creates a lot more panic in some ways, especially for the people who need the help. I would just continue to say that we're doing everything we can, but it's a partnership, again, between our community leaders, and opening up those warming stations is a course of business since I've been in office, that we open it up, multiple warming stations that are in the system, that emergency management actually makes that call when we need to have that happen, and then we respond, and then we're fortunate to have municipal leaders that are willing to respond.
But in a small agency, Providence Rescue Mission, I think it's $1.8 million budget a year. House 200 people every night or more.
Yes.
Why Crossroad or the big agency can do the same thing?
Well,
for millions of dollars, waste the money, and you give it to them, and you're not getting a response.
Well, and again, one of the reasons why we held back some of the dollars that were going to go to some of the providers was that we wanted contracts in hand that did exactly that in terms of an accountability piece. And then I mentioned many of the providers that provide us with accountability to a degree that that satisfies me. The main thing here is, look, we need shelter, and we need to continue to have shelter beds that exceed the need. And that's what I'm committed to do. And right now, entering this winter, I believe that we were there. If it proves out that we're not there, then we'll reassess and we'll make sure that we add additional shelter beds.
Governor, several lawmakers have called on you to declare that public health emergency that you talked about a little bit earlier, including Speaker Shikarchi on this morning's taping of newspapers. I know you addressed that a little bit ago. Is there a threshold that would make you consider?
Yeah, so we're going to weigh the merits and not the merits of it. I explained some of the reasons that are being expressed, that we would waive certain conditions that have been put in place for really good reasons. If the General Assembly had a mindset to change some of that legislation, and they felt as though that was a path that they wanted to take, at this point in time, we are open to consideration of any measure that makes sense. At this point in time, it doesn't fit the bill. So, but we'll continue to take a look at that. And I did have a direct conversation with the speaker last night, and he asked me to try to make sure that available shelter beds would be somehow put out, that information could be put out in a broader way so that, that people could see it, the legislators that are concerned can see it. So we'll follow up on that, and that's the conversation I had with the speaker yesterday.
I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Oh, go ahead. We got one more. Oh, get a microphone though.
One more. You mentioned just how much money the state has poured into this issue already. We asked the Department of Housing last week, but if you have to get an answer, do you know how much the state spent on 2024?
I know how much was budgeted, $30 million. I also know that there's federal dollars on top of that when Senator Reid announced $15 million plus that went into the very, providers that were expressing some concern in terms of what, of how we're operating. So we'll get a total. I think that's a really good question. We need a total, not only the state's contribution, which is going to be reduced next year because some of that $30 million was one-time money, and we're going to certainly ring the bell that we got to be prepared for next winter. But we also got to add in all the federal dollars that are going to that are being provided. As in addition, the Province Rescue Mission, which I really love those guys, and I meet with them, certainly more than once a year to talk about the work that they're doing. Well, they're investing dollars too. So we'll get a sense on the total dollars that are being spent on shelter, and then we're going to continue to work on a housing strategy in the state of Rhode Island that addresses from shelter all the way to transition, to low, to moderate, to fair market value. And that balance needs to speak to the 2030 plan we have, which means we want to raise incomes for the people in the state of Rhode Island, and we can't lose sight of that. And then we also need to raise personal wealth for the people who live in the state of Rhode Island, and home ownership is part of that. So it's a total all-in package that we have to be working on. Thank you very much for being here today.